Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. It's really exciting to be here tonight. We are embarking on a very exciting journey together as parents to strengthen ourselves as parents, to become more connected with the parents we want to be and with the children, with our children who are entrusted to us by Hashem to raise to adulthood in the best way that we possibly can. Very, very exciting to be here and to be starting this. Quite a few people have asked me over the years, like, oh, the book, Your Awesome Self, is there a parenting version? And there isn't. Tonight, what we're going to do is I'm going to do a brief introduction. And then over the next 5 weeks, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on a different part of the book, a different one of the 12 principles. We won't get through all of them. We'll do the first 5 as they relate to ourselves in our efforts in our parenting. I want to open tonight with a story, and then we'll get into details. I was at a Shterna a couple of years ago. She's a friend. She grew up in France, a wonderful woman. And you know how it is when you're sitting in the Shterna's chair, a lot of times you get into interesting conversations. And she shared with me this story about her childhood. She grew up in an environment where she went to a school that there were a lot of children in her class who were not from the same background. They were not from the same protected, kind of homes, more open to secular entertainment and different lifestyles that were not supported by her, were different from her parents' home. And yet that's where she went. That was the school that was available for her. That was the school that she had. And that's where she learned. One time in her teenage years, in her high school years, there was a party in one of her friends' houses, and a kid in her class. And when she told her mother about the party, her mother said, "I really would prefer that you do not go to this party." She said there's going to be all kinds of interesting people there. There's going to be dancing, girls, boys, music, who knows what else. I really would prefer you don't go. And the girl's thinking to herself, she wanted to be popular. She wanted to hang out with her friends. She wanted to do the fun stuff that everybody else was doing. And really, her mother would never know if she went to the party or she didn't. She was planning on going straight from school, and her mother wouldn't know. She would come home an hour late. So what? So she, after school, the day of the party, she decided she is going to the party. And she got on the bus that would take her. She used to come home by city bus, public transportation. And she went to the bus that would take her to the party with all the other kids in the class that were going to this party. And as she got close, maybe even, I don't remember exactly at what point, maybe it was somewhere on the bus, or maybe it was on the block of the house, or maybe it was even, right before she went in, she suddenly had this flash of insight, an awakening in her heart, in her mind. And she could picture her mother saying, "I'm trusting you. I'm trusting you." And she thought, my mother trusts me and I'm going to break her trust? She trusts me. She's not watching my every step. She trusts me. She turned herself around and she went back home. She said, "I didn't even tell my mother. It didn't matter. It mattered that I felt good, that I did the right thing." And she's looking back all these years later, she really attributes that moment, that choice, to so much goodness in her life. Was a turning point, because she didn't have the clarity that she has now as an adult, looking back, and she could say, "Thank you, Hashem, for keeping me strong, for giving me the courage to stay on the path of truth, of straightforwardness, of growth, of connection, of Torah and mitzvahs, as opposed to what would seem so much more fun and enticing and really pulling her in such a compelling way at that point in her life." So, and looking back as an adult, she really attributes so much of that to her mother. And I wish it's my wish in my life that I could be that mother. I could be the kind of mother that my kid would think like, oh my mother's trusting me. My mother doesn't want me to do this. I'm not going to do that, because you know what? Baruch Hashem, many of our children are blessed to be able to go to schools that are very supportive, that are very nurturing, that are very nurturing in terms of ruchnius values, spiritual values, and they protect a certain standard. And maybe they won't have this kind of, maybe it won't be a classmate that's having this kind of party, but every single one of our children is going to be faced, if they're not already, they're going to be faced with choices, with opportunities, with forks in the road that could take them instantly into an entirely different direction than what is good and wholesome and growing and strong for them. And each of our children in different ways are going to have those choices and those moments. And the big question is, where are they going to have the courage to stay true to a set of values that is wholesome and good and worthwhile for them in the bigger picture? Where are they going to have that inner strength that it takes to stand up for what they believe, or for what they want to believe, or what their conscience believes is right, even when there's a very big force of pressure pulling them in a different direction? What's going to keep them strong? What's going to protect them? What's going to hold them tight within the embrace, within a loving embrace of Torah and mitzvahs and growth and a active, dynamic relationship with Hashem in a way that they feel healthy and secure and protected and loved? How are they going to get it? It's really, there's so much of it is up to us as parents. And you know, when I was younger, I read every single parenting book, like from my first baby. I was very into the books, and I was very into like the method and what to do and what to say and how to the routines and the this and the that. And I realized over the years that none of that matters. If I could point to one thing that matters, it's being present, knowing how to regulate my emotions, and coming to my children, engaging with them from a place of love as opposed to a place of fear, from a place of connection as opposed to control and managing, being relationship oriented as opposed to compliance and behavior oriented. So tonight, what we're going to do is there's two worksheets, but the first one is, it's 2 circles. And this is a summary of our journey. And the reason why I want to do it now is because I would love for everyone to open it and read it. If you don't have it and you're listening to this, you could email to info@energizedliving.org tomorrow, Mirz Hashem, and we will send you the worksheets. Okay, so if you're listening to this, you can email to info@energizedliving.org. Nobody will answer tonight, but the Mirz Hashem tomorrow, info@energizedliving.org. Or if you have access to WhatsApp, 718-576-0338, and you'll get the worksheets. Okay, so our journey is from being distracted to being connected. And it's our constant choice. It's something that we're going to be choosing every single day, every single hour, every single minute, or in every interaction. From the place of distraction, we are just going with the flow. We're just doing whatever comes naturally to us, whatever we're on autopilot, whatever we were told when we were kids, or whatever we always said, we're never going to talk like that. We're never going to say those things, but we get upset and out it comes, right? That unleashing of whatever it is. So that's distracted. We're just going with the flow. Wherever other people's energy, my kid gets upset, I get upset. My kid is acting obnoxious, I get right into that pattern of obnoxious behavior. They scream, I scream right back, right? That's distracted. Okay. In that place, and where we want to go ultimately is not ultimately, but every single day is connected. We want to be able to pause when we feel ourselves getting worked up. We want to be able to pause. We want to be able to ground ourselves in the mindset, in the truths that we want to believe in, that in the value system that we want to live by and that we want our children to live by. We want to stand in those truths, and we want to make a conscious choice from that awareness, from the place of that awareness, from the place of that, the values that we actually really want to live by. That's a summary of what we want to do. So we want to stop being distracted and stop just, being on that autopilot mode and getting sucked into all the energy and all the whatever else is happening around us and being reactive. And we want to engage from a place of real connection by pausing, grounding ourselves in the values we want to live by, and consciously choosing what our perspectives and how we relate to our children, how we respond, how we engage, how we initiate from the place of that value system. And what that looks like in more detail is, when we're distracted, when we're going with the flow, we want compliance. We just want the kid to behave. We don't really care if it works. Works means they behaved, whether it's threatening, bribing, forcing, all that stuff. It's as long as a kid behaved, everything, I can go back to my phone, I can go back to my dishes, I can go back to my work. They are now compliant, all is good in the world. And I put that on the top because that's a very big drive. Let everyone, all my ducks are going to be neatly lined up in a row, and then I am good. And it's not just talking about getting the kids to follow the rules. It's also getting them, in my younger years, if a kid was very upset because they built a Lego tower and another kid came and messed it up, or they built a tower out of blocks and it broke and they were disappointed. My goal in that moment was just to get the kid to stop crying. Get the kid to stop crying. That was my whole goal. And now I know that those tears, that frustration, that disappointment is such a moment of opportunity to teach the child skills that they really need to know for the rest of their lives. Skills that they need to know. How do I deal with disappointment? What are my emotions? Are they scary? Are they something that I want to avoid at all costs? Or are they something that I can learn from and grow from and move forward with, along with? Do I need to squash a part of myself to live? Or are we bringing all of ourselves along for the ride into our lives? And of course, that's a whole different way. So from compliance to connection, from a place of connection, we're not so worried about their behavior. Of course, we want all children to behave, but that's not the goal. The goal is to nurture healthy, meaningful relationship. And from that place, it's not about the rules. Of course, it's about the rules. We want the children to cooperate. We want them to be healthy members, productive members of society, but that's not the goal. The goal is not compliance. The goal is not stop crying so I can get back to the real business of life. The goal is I want to have a beautiful, loving relationship with you. I want you to know that I get you. I understand you. I want you to feel connected in a loving, secure way. That's all the difference. Yiddishkeit, from a place of like compliance above all, driven by compliance, Yiddishkeit also becomes something that kids have to obey. We just want to make them behave. We want to just get them to do the right thing. Whereas, and you know what? If we do that, they come to a certain age where threatening and bribing and forcing and controlling and managing and insisting no longer works. And if those are our only tools, we are in deep, hot water. We are in big trouble. What we really need is for children. Of course, we want them to have Kabbalah's O. Of course, we want them to do mitzvahs. Why? Because Hashem said so. Because it's the right thing to do. But at the same time, to believe in Hashem, to accept that as a reason to do something, to be driven by worthiness, we need them to buy in. We need them to feel like it's something that I want. Shabbos has to be something that I want. It's not. It can't be something that's a pressure, that's a burden, that's a day of tears. It's a day of boredom. It's a day of I have to do all these things that I don't really want to do, or I'm not allowed to do all the things that I do want to do. We really want them to get to buy in. So the same idea, from compliance to driven to relationship driven, very much plays itself out in how we guide our children when it comes to Torah and mitzvahs and Yiddishkeit, the observance of Torah and mitzvahs. Are we going to just, expect them and manage them, to behave, to make them behave? Or are we nurturing a connection and encouraging them and inspiring them to buy in? You cannot force a teenager to do anything, but when they are inspired, they can literally do anything, right? We can't force them to do anything, but when they're inspired, they will do it all. And they'll do it even more passionately, more energetically, with more commitment than we ever knew was possible. So that's, I'm going down the list, okay? Rules and consequences from a distracted place, from a going with the flow kind of place. We are very into rules and consequences. That's like everything. Rules and if and then, if you do this, then you're going to get that. It's all about rules and consequences. Whereas in a connection-driven approach, attachment is everything. Yes, there are rules, and yes, there are consequences, but it's not about that. It's not about that. The goal is an attachment. The goal is a relationship. The goal is connection. And there's one line that I skipped. It's make them behave versus make ourselves behave, where we really own our position as role models. Not just, and I let this out when I was talking about the Yiddishkeit piece, that if we want, part of having children buy in to the Yiddishkeit is we want a role model that Yiddishkeit is fun, Yiddishkeit is loving, Yiddishkeit is a happy place to be. Torah mitzvahs makes me happy. I love it. It's not just something, it's not a burden. It's not a set of rules that constricts me and limits me. It's a gift that sets me free. I have to love Yiddishkeit. I have to embrace it. I have to celebrate it. It's got to be something really happy. And also, if we want our children to have Yiras Shamayim, then we need to role model Yiras Shamayim. And Yiras Shamayim, I'm going to translate, because I know that not everybody here speaks, that Yiddish vernacular. I'm sorry if I'm using it too much. Yiras Shamayim means fear of heaven. But what it really is, deeper than fear, because it's so much bigger than fear, it's awareness of Hashem's presence in the room, and where that awareness actually means something. So if we want our children to buy in to Yiddishkeit, to buy into Torah mitzvahs, we want to model that love and that awe and the bigness of and our real authentic relationship with it all. I'm now going underneath the distracted and going with the flow. The next thing is do as I say, not as I do. Okay, that's a common thing from a compliance-oriented approach. We're very into like, just do it. I don't care. Don't tell me anything. Let's not have a conversation. Just do it. Whereas in a connection-oriented approach, we are very much aware that we are the role models. We are the salespeople. We are Hashem's ambassadors to our children. We are the salesperson. We're the ones selling Hashem to our children. And how do we sell it? Every single moment of our life is a sales pitch. The way we do mitzvahs, the way we engage in our lives, the way we deal with our disappointments, the way we deal with our overwhelm and stressful situations. Those are the moments that become the moments where we have the opportunity to role model what it looks like, a real authentic Torah way of life. Okay, autopilot, I think the rest is, I spoke about. One more thing, from autopilot is in a place of distracted and going with the flow, right? The compliance-oriented approach. We are on autopilot. We're not reflecting. We're not analyzing. At the end of the day, our question is, did my kid behave or not, right? Did it go well? Was everyone quiet? Was everyone in bed on time? Was everyone behaving? Was everyone doing what they're supposed to be doing? From a conscious perspective, from the connection-oriented approach, at the end of the day, the question is not so much, did my child behave? The question is, did I behave? How did I behave? How did I show up? Were my behaviors in harmony with the values of what I want to live by? Were my behavior, so it's not, did my kid behave? It's, did I behave? And how could I show up tomorrow with more sense of a connection to the values that I want to live by and to the values that I want to transmit and imbue within my children. And of course, the last three things, of course, from a distracted, compliance-oriented approach, we just avoid conflict, right? We don't want to go there. We're not looking for any trouble. We just look at when our kid disagrees with us, we look at that as a bad thing. Oh, again you're arguing, again you're gonna, why can't you just do what I say and that's it, right? We look at conflict as something that we want to wish away, that it should never be there. It's not a good thing. When really conflicts are the opportunities. That's where we have that conversation that might be a little bit hard. That's where we can teach. That's where we can learn what a child's needs are, what a child is thinking and how they think. That's where we can really connect on a deeper level. So conflict becomes a good thing. And of course, the last two things, not conscious of Hashem's power and not conscious of our own neshama's value and our child's neshama's value versus really attributing all the power to Hashem and giving honor to the value of our neshama and to the value of our child's neshama. There is no such thing as a better mother or a worse mother. You cannot be a better mother. You're already the best mother. Hashem entrusted each and every one of us with a child, with a part of himself, with his child to raise, to take care of, to embrace, to love, and to support on their journey, wherever their journey might take them. So there's no such thing as a better or worse mother, because how can we grade Hashem? Hashem is the one who put us in this position. Hashem is the one who makes us a mother. How could we be better or worse? There's no such thing. Every mother is entrusted and empowered by Hashem, and nothing can add to our value and nothing could diminish our value. At the same time, we can show up with greater strength. We can show up in a less distracted way, in a more connected way. We can show up without being so compliant oriented in a world that values everything external and just washes over everything that's a little bit deeper. We can show up with more awareness, with more nurturing, with more getting a little bit deeper into connection and being connected oriented versus compliance oriented. And we could create the changes we want in our lives, in our homes. All of this might sound very overwhelming, especially if it's the first time you're hearing any of this, right? It could be very overwhelming. But what we're going to do in this group over the next few weeks is we're going to work towards these changes one moment at a time with just one choice, and then another, and then another. And Be'ezras Hashem, we will share strength as we go along. What I want to do now is I want to share, I'm going to share a tool, which is on page 2 of these of the sheets. But before I do that, I want to open to questions. Someone's asking, does this apply to teaching a 2-year-old as well, compared to teaching an older child? And I want to say absolutely, because chinuch starts in infancy and even before infancy. Okay, it's all about, people think, well, my 2-year-old, I could very easily pick them up and just put them wherever I want. And you could, right? Two-year-olds, it's very easy to be compliant oriented with 2-year-olds because very often they're unreasonable and you can't do the connection piece. At the same time, that's really where it begins. It's the snuggling that's so important. It's not just about getting the kid into bed, like you put away the dishes, you put away the kids, you know. It's about nurturing a relationship, listening to them, you know, hearing them out, taking their disappointments seriously, taking their struggles seriously. All right, I love your question. It's a great question, and I'm going to repeat it. So how does chinuch apply to a child who's not yet verbal? And I think this question applies to children who are young, and it also applies to children who may not understand everything that we are telling them. And this question includes, like, how am I teaching them rules and consequences if they don't understand one word that I'm saying? And that's exactly my point, that chinuch, if we look at it from the place of my job is to teach a child what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, then yeah, then words is the most important thing. But if my job as a child, as a parent, is to empower every child to see themselves as a key player in Hashem's world, and to be able, and that they should trust themselves and trust themselves and engage in their lives with clarity, with compassion, with dignity, with kindness to others, and really see themselves as givers in a healthy, wholesome way, that's a whole different thing than rules and consequences. And for that, what they need to experience is that they are precious, they are loved, they matter, even when they're upset, even when they're not behaving, and even when they're acting out of line. And I think that none of that is verbal. It's about snuggling up with him when you're putting him to bed and just being there, just listening to him breathe, or listening to the things that they want to say. I think, that's when the kids all of a sudden have all their things to say, right? All the things that they want to say comes up at night when they're laying there in the bed. And that's when they say, oh, my friend, she really hurt my feelings today. I was so upset. It doesn't come out any other time. And even if a child is nonverbal, when they're falling asleep and they are feeling vulnerable and maybe a little bit afraid of the night, your presence there with them, just holding them, makes such a big difference. And I'm just using one part of the day to show how nonverbal, it's not limited to verbal, because what we're talking about is bigger than, it's not about being verbal. It's about really tuning into that place of love and engaging from that place. A 2-year-old, a 3-year-old child who's not yet verbal, we read them books, we hold them, you point to pictures, we repeat the same words again and again. That's what we could teach them. We're not worried about teaching them the whole 613 mitzvahs at that age. We're not worried about teaching them the parsha. We are reading them a book, and maybe they'll pick up on some of the words, especially the ones we repeat again and again and again, and maybe they won't. But they definitely pick up on the love and the connection, and they know that sitting next to and learning is a thing that's beautiful and pleasurable and good. Does this contradict the fact that children have to listen to Tati and Mami because Hashem wants them to, regarding the compliant part? Does this contradict that children have to listen to Tati and Mami because Hashem wants them to? I personally would not use that. Obviously, yes, Hashem doesn't want you to be disrespectful to your mother, but honestly, if a child is being disrespectful, they're going to be disrespectful. That's not enough. Of course, a child needs to listen to Tati Mama because Hashem wants them to. And of course, Kabed Esavicha ve'esimecha is one of the Aseres HaDibros, and it's definitely a value and a lifestyle and a mitzvah that we want to teach our children. But how are we going to teach it to them? Are we going to teach it to them with love? Are we going to, somebody once, a man once wrote a letter to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He said, when I'm demanding respect and I'm not getting it. And the Rebbe said something like, respect is not something that could be demanded. Be a mensch, be a role model, and then you will command respect. In other words, you will inspire respect. It's not something that you could demand, but you will command it by your being a role model. And I think that's what we need to go with when inspiring our children to listen to Tati Mami. Of course, they have to listen to Tati Mami, but it's not something that we can teach them from a place of fear and from a place of negativity. And it's not going to help. We need to inspire them to want to do that. If the 2-year-old will not stop crying from the blocks being torn down, what should you do in that moment? Or doesn't stop crying in public because their older sibling sat in their stroller? Okay, so how do you teach a child to calm down? How do you teach a child to calm down? We're going to talk about that in a minute. But the most important thing in teaching a child how to calm down is, how do we calm ourselves down when we get upset? How do we calm down when we're stressed out and overwhelmed and things don't go our way? What do we do with it? Now, you could have a parent who's very calm and has very good emotional regulation skills, and their child has a problem, a biological, a chemistry kind of problem with calming down. That's okay. That could happen. But definitely, if we do not know how to regulate our own emotions, then how can we teach it? And if we know how to regulate our own emotions, then we want to think, how do I do that? What is the process? And then we could teach that process to our child. Today, we're going to learn a process of calming down. And then it's something that we'll talk about how to teach that to our children. Okay, we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. I'm just going to go on to the rest of the chat and see if there are any more questions. How can you balance making the child feel this connection and specialness when there are, Baruch Hashem, lots of young kids close in age who all need mommy at once? Like in the bedtime, for example, I'm going back and forth between bedrooms. How to spend that cuddle time with one kid when the others are also vying for my attention? This is a great question, very, very practical. And I think that everybody's situation is different, and everybody has different challenges with this. And the one thing I do not want you to take away from this is like, oh my, I am a bad person because I cannot manage to spend time with all of my kids. For some people, it might be that they're going to spend time every day of the week with a different child. For some people, it might be every day they'll do 2 children that they spend time with. And some people might just, say in the bedroom, let's say if you have a bunch of kids close in age, some of them share rooms. So maybe you're going to sit on a chair and hold one kid on your lap at a time. Or maybe you're going to, go for a couple of minutes into each kid's bed. I have my 2 youngest. I put on a song on an auto repeat on an MP3 player, and when I'm laying with the kid for as long as that song is, sometimes, but we don't notice, and it goes twice, but that they know and they accept. And sometimes if I have more time, it's a 6-minute song, a 10-minute song, an 11-minute track, and sometimes it's a 4-minute one. So that's just one little. Going back between and forth between bedrooms. If you're stressed, if we are stressed, then what are we actually accomplishing? The point is to really try to be calm and have that relaxed few moments. I want to just say one other thing about this is that I really, if COVID taught us anything meaningful, anything positive, it's that we could actually survive without going out every night and every morning and everything and everywhere in between. We could actually stay home and it's fine. We don't have to run out. In today's world, every time somebody gets married, there's about 5 parties. There's the first party when they announce the engagement. Then there's the l'chaim or the t'nayim, and in Borough Park we call it the t'nayim or the vart, right? Then there's the bavarfin. Then there's the wedding itself, and then there's Shabbos Sheva Brachos you want to stop by, right? That's 5 times. Now, if you have a lot of close family, you're going out a lot of times, and I think that's part of what keeps us stressed. I think that one of the things we want to try to do as mothers is look at it as give it the space and the honor that it deserves, and don't feel like, we all take on. I always say I could do anything, but I cannot do everything, right? We could do anything we want to do, but we cannot do everything. And we really need to honor that truth, that principle. And every time we say yes to something, we're saying no to something else. So what do I need to say no to so that I could spend more time with my kids? And every person needs to honestly look at what their to-do list is. What's on my list? What am I doing? Am I ironing? Am I, making extra food? Is there something that could be that could be cut out. And some people look at me and say, no, there's actually nothing that I can cut out. I live in a very small apartment. We don't have money for cleaning help. We I really don't have time. So then there's other, then you have to resort to like, one kid every night and make sure it's a different one that gets attention every day, so that at least over time they're getting attention. But I think if we're honest, there are things that we can take away and responsibilities or pleasures, things that we do that we could stop doing or cut back a little bit on so that we can have more time to spend with our children. Okay, one more question here and then we'll go to the tool. My child, a teenager, just saw I was on here and asked me if I was learning to parent her better. Oh, I answered yes. She responded that I was the worst mother. Oh, I told her, how can you say that? I am the best Hashem made me. She disagreed and walked out. She is an only child and the entire house revolves around her. Wow. Yeah, so this child seems to have a lot of power. She has a lot of power. And what she was expressing in that, a lot of times as parents, and I do this too, I respond to the words instead of responding to the emotion. When a child says, you are the worst mother, that's not nice words. But what the emotion is that I am missing something. I need something. I would like something, right? The emotion is desire. And that's not obnoxious, but the words are very obnoxious. And I can very much relate to getting swept up into the words and missing the need, missing the emotional request that's being asked. So that's one thing, to try to really notice and pause. The tool that we're going to be learning today is going to help with just slowing it down before you respond. And another thing to notice in your response is, if my kid says something disgusting, right? I don't have to get into what she's doing. Is she's talking to me from a childish place, even if she's a teenager, especially if she's a teenager. She looks so big and strong, but really she's a little kid. But because they're a teenager and because we want our children to like us, all of a sudden they have so much power. And we're like, no, please don't say that. Take it away. How could you? Please don't say that. It's a terrible thing. I'm going to be, we take on a label for ourselves based on what our children say or don't say. And because we take on a label, we need them to take it back. Like, oh my, they're the only ones who have, they gave us the label. They have the power to give us the label. They have the power to take it away. And then we feel bad when they don't take it away. But if we realize that whatever our kids say, she's not going to define me. I'm not taking on a label because my kid likes my supper or doesn't like my supper. I'm not taking on a label because my kid thinks I'm fair or not fair. I'm not going to take on a label because of anything my child says or does or doesn't do. Yes, some of those things may be very painful to deal with, especially teenagers' comments can be very cutting. They can cut very deep, right? And it could be painful, but at the same time, they're not who we are. And we want to retain our status as parents, as the adult in the relationship, as the one who ultimately has more power, has all the power in the relationship. And they don't have the power to define us, even though it feels like they do. So let's say if a child says, something obnoxious, like, you are the absolute worst mother, saying something like, you wish you had a different kind of mother. One day, let's sit down and tell me what you would like to be different. Or one day, let's sit down and talk about that. So I'm acknowledging that, I don't have to defend myself. I don't have to get into an argument. I don't have to get into a whole loop of negativity. And she said, and I said, and I said, she said, and I said. She's saying something. I can take it for what it is, a desire for something to change. Or maybe it's just a bad mood. But it's not something that becomes a label. It's not something that I have to, that becomes an argument or that becomes a whole negative situation. But I want to say that all of these things that we're talking about, you know, we're going to gain strength in all of this over the next few weeks. I want to say something more besides, you know, over the next few weeks. Somebody shared with me that she said, I went to a parenting course and it was for 8 weeks long. And while I was part of the course, it worked. But then I stopped going and I lost it. And so in retrospect, it didn't work. And I thought, and I told her what I thought, and that was that very often a part of what works is the fact that you're coming to the group. It's the fact that you're talking to friends, sitting around the table, sharing notes, sharing what works, sharing what doesn't work. Just even that weekly check-in of, we're here in this, what am I thinking? What am I doing? How is it going? What, you know, just, it just inspires personal reflection, and that in its, and empowerment and inspiration and strength. And that in itself is what makes things work. So it's not going to be a quick fix. And yet, and you will still need practice and support and talking about it, but definitely over time, with Hashem's help and commitment and taking steps, you know, taking baby steps, you'll see a lot of changes so that the nature of these kinds of interactions becomes more positive, more meaningful, and more connection oriented and less toxic. Okay, I hope that was a very long answer, but I think a lot of people had that question. It was a great question. Disrespectful words have to be responded to teach them that you have to talk with derech eretz. Okay, so how are you going to teach them to talk with derech eretz? By telling them, you know, you can go to visit, you know, ask any kid, what should they do? And they know exactly what to do. Why aren't they doing it? Is it because they don't know? Do they not know the mitzvah of derech eretz? They know. There's a reason why they're not doing it. So it's not about, you know, teaching them that they have to talk with derech eretz. It's taking away what's getting in their way, fixing the leak in their cup, and repairing whatever's broken, whatever's getting in the way of them doing what they know they really should be doing. So when a child says, someone's asking a question, so when a child says something purposefully negative and potentially disrespectful, what's the best way to respond to validate and connect while not allowing disrespect? It's a great question, and we're gonna, this is the question that will be a good introduction to the tool that we're gonna learn today. But before that, I wanna just comment on the question, while not allowing disrespect. We don't have a choice sometimes. What do you mean you don't allow disrespect? I don't allow it. What you probably mean is not like showing that, giving them a message that it's not okay, right? Because you don't wanna, we don't have a choice. What do you mean you don't allow disrespect? I don't allow it. Okay, very nice, right? When a child says something purposefully negative and potentially disrespectful, or probably disrespectful, if it's purposely negative, it is disrespectful, right? What's the best way to respond? We want to validate and connect, and while still like giving that message of like, hey, it's not okay to be disrespectful. Let's go to the tool here. And then we'll go back to more questions, Mirza Hashem. Okay, so the power tool is a 5-step, very quick process to power up when we get down, to step back into our connected self, instead of being our responsive, go with the flow, compliance-oriented self, okay? We're empowered to choose our beliefs and our behavior. We can choose the relationship over compliance. We can choose love over fear. We can choose that connection over disconnection, right? But when our emotions get fired up, we lose sight of our dignity. We lose sight of our personal value. We get into fight or flight mode. We get into that place where we're gonna fight back, where we're gonna protect ourselves, or we're gonna protect our child, you know, from becoming a monster, right? And in that place of fight or flight, who's the enemy? Who's the bear, the elephant that just walked into the room? Who's the robber with the chas v'shalom with a gun? It's our kid. It's our kid. It's our loving, yummy, delicious, precious, bundle of joy that we held with such delight and awe and reverence. And now we're in our minds, we're acting as if this person is a dangerous terrorist living in our own house. And that's what fight or flight looks like, right? We get all worked up and we say things we don't really want to say, and we do things we don't really want to do. So how do we get back into our calm state of being our better self, our higher self, our connected self, our aware, our self where we could consciously choose the connection and choose love over fear? So here's how we're going to do this, okay? Power is just an acronym. And it's just a way to learn it. But really, for me personally, I don't practice this enough. I have to practice it more. But when I do, this is my go-to tool. And I don't think necessarily of the process. Once you learn the process, it's not about the process. It goes like in 10 seconds and 15 seconds. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but don't get stuck on the details. Okay, let's jump into it. So P is for pause. This is the most important part. It's to slam the brakes, to stop whatever you're doing, just stop moving, right? You're in that, you're middle of responding. Why did you say that? What's going on? Whatever it is, pause, take a deep breath, and press your feet on the brakes. Literally visualize yourself that you are pressing your feet on the brakes. If you're sitting, that's easier. If you're standing, you could lean against the wall, but physically do this thing of like literally pressing your feet against the brakes. And I actually was speaking with a wonderful therapist. We were doing a session together once, and she told me that research scientifically shows that when we do this kind of thing, like deep breathing and putting our feet, like feeling the weight of our feet in the floor, it sends a message to our brain that we are safe. So it sounds like so simple, like really my deep breathing is going to make a difference, but it really, really, really works. Just breathing in deeply, in through your nose, holding it for 5 seconds, and out through your mouth for another 5 seconds, and build up to 10 seconds. It's really, 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 it gives oxygen to your brain. It slows down, takes that, when you're in that fight or flight mode, your adrenaline is rushing through your body, your heart is racing, you might get a little sweaty. And this literally brings your heart rate back down to normal. It dials down that fight or flight syndrome, and you're telling yourself, I'm okay, I'm safe, it's good, I'm doing fine, I am doing fine, we are okay, we're all okay. So taking a deep breath and slowing down and do that at any point, wherever you're up to in that struggle, in the battle, whether it's the middle of a temper tantrum that your child is having or middle of a temper tantrum that you are having. Take that pause. P is for pause. Stop whatever you're doing, stop moving, take deep breaths, and press your feet into the ground, like literally imagine yourself, you're putting your feet on the brakes. Okay. O is for observe. Without any judgment or expectations, observe what is going on in your mind and heart. Observe your thoughts, observe your feelings, observe what you are doing. And very gently ask yourself, what's going on? What are you afraid of? And I just carefully chose this question, what are you afraid of? Because that the core of all our, that when we lose control, when we're in that compliant oriented, distracted mode, it's always we're afraid of something. We might be afraid of our child turning out to be like that cousin, like that uncle, like that relative. The kid is 2, the relative is 20, but we have this fear, like all of a sudden this kid is going to be a monster when they grow up if they don't change right now. Or this kid is going to be who knows who, he's going to be this bully or whatever. Another very important question is, who or what is holding the power to make you into a good person or a bad person, to make you a good mother or a bad mother? Okay, what goal is driving you? Is it compliance or is it connection? All these questions are really good and really helpful. And obviously, the first time you do this, you're not going to go running for the paper, but just talking about it now and maybe reading it again tomorrow, read it again, read it once a day for a couple of days until it kind of becomes a little bit more, familiar and a go-to place in your head. W is for welcome. Welcome Hashem into the story. Welcome the truth of your worthiness into this very space. Consciously connect with your dignity, respectability, and your power of choice. Consciously connect with your goal of connection and over compliance. So welcome is a very important part. Welcome Hashem into the story. And as we learn more about Hashem, as you think about Hashem every day, you can give more space. And that welcoming Hashem to the story starts to mean more. It could be the first time you do this. Welcoming Hashem to the story doesn't really mean anything. But if you spend a few seconds every morning saying my da'ani, davening, if you spend just a few seconds or 1 second every time before you make that bracha, sha'akol nihiyeh or sha'akol niyah bidvarai, that every single thing in this world happens by Hashem's word and only his word, that slowly over time gives more power and more weight to when you say Hashem walking into the story. So welcome Hashem into the story. What changes? What's going to shift? When Hashem is so big, what's going to become small? When your power of your neshama is so big, what is going to become small? What's it going to do for you? And consciously connect, welcome Hashem to the story. As you welcome Hashem to the story, welcome your mission as a parent, the mission that Hashem gives you, that mission to raise a child with love, to serve him with joy. So, and with that, we want to choose that, consciously choose that, what we're not up to consciously choose, but consciously connect. Welcome your desires, your value that comes with Hashem walking into the story. And E is envision. Envision, there's something amazing about visualizing. The power of visualization is that it makes something that's abstract and intangible into something that's real and palpable and practical. So envision your neshama as a bright, shining light flowing from Hashem straight to you. Envision that powerful flow of Hashem's energy. Take it with both hands. Feel it in your bones. Let it feel it in every part of your body. It's an unstoppable, beautiful, majestic, infinitely precious light that makes you beautiful right here and right now, and good right here and right now. And also, aside from envisioning your own soul, your own neshama, envision your child's neshama. But for that, what's really, really beautiful to do is envision your child, this child, as a healthy, thriving, successful, happy, responsible, capable, emotionally intelligent, connected adult. And after welcoming and envisioning Hashem to the story and your child as a successful, thriving adult, it's time to do the R, which is resolve. It's about making that conscious resolution, making that conscious choice. Resolve to engage in this situation from the place of your commitment to connection. When your actions aren't elevating you, right? I don't like what I'm doing. It's not elevating me. I want to examine my beliefs. So sometimes that is my resolution. Hey, I want to work with that. Something's not right here. I want to work with that belief. Make a decision about what beliefs you want to hold on to and what you want to let go of. Make a decision about what you want to say that will express, number one, Hashem's empowerment of you. Number two, your vision of the child as a successful, thriving individual, like a really wonderful, beautiful person. What am I going to say in this moment that's going to express that belief, that's going to be aligned with that belief? And sometimes it might take thought. Sometimes you might just be silent. But at the end of the day, our biggest goal is, how will I model a happy Torah way of life? How am I going to be a role model of a happy Torah way of life? And that's more important than anything that we could possibly teach. So we don't have to worry if I missed an opportunity to show him how wrong he is by saying that, or to show her how foolish she is being. I don't have to worry about missing an opportunity. There's one of the doctor's promises, first do no harm, right? As mothers, we also want to first do no harm. A lot of people are like, wait, what if I don't say the right thing? I think it's better to be silent than, I don't want to put in a sense of chas v'shalom mistrust, but it's okay if I paused and I observed and I welcomed Hashem to the story and I envisioned my light and I envisioned my child's light. And then I made a resolution that right now, I don't even know what to say. I want to think about it for another minute, and that's okay. You don't have to have all the right answers. So I want to go back to the original question and talk about how to use that tool, and then we'll open up to more questions. So when a child says something purposefully negative and disrespectful, what's the way to respond, to validate and connect while not allowing disrespect? I think it's about reflect, first of all, on our own. It's do that thing to come to a calm place so that you don't get swept up in that negativity, in that negative loop, which is really going to just, I'm going to get right down on the kids' level and be, in the mud together with them. So first I need to calm down, and I need to come to a place where I'm the parent, where I'm standing in my own dignity, in my own value, in my empowerment, given to me by Hashem and taken away from me by nobody, because nobody could take it away from me. I want to stand in that light that is untouchable and undiminishable. I'm really not in like, not in a defensive, protective kind of way, but in a calm way, in a secure way, in a dignified way, in a relaxed way, where I'm really okay. I'm really okay. From that place of being okay, I can hear the person's emotions. I can say, wow, it sounds like you wish you could da-da-da. You wish, you really want A, B, or C. Or I could tell you're really not happy. We could respond to the emotion without getting, and not to the words. I think that's how I would try to respond. And at the same time, you can say, I want you to say that to me in a healthy, meaningful, productive way, not in a way that's, I don't like when I don't respond when people talk to me that way. So as soon as, talk to me nicely, because I don't like to be spoken to that way. I think that covers all our bases. Oh my, there's a lot of messages here. And we will try to get to all of them. And if we don't, we will continue Mirz Hashem next week. Someone is saying, if I ignore what they're doing, they're going to do it again and again. I don't think that what I'm talking about is ignoring. I'm talking about engaging from a place of love instead of engaging from a place of fear. Engaging from a place of being responsive instead of being reactive. I don't think that's called ignoring. Okay, someone is sharing, I feel bad that my kids are much older already and I did it all wrong. You know what? I also feel bad sometimes in some ways. And I think that all of us, as we learn and grow, and hopefully we're all learning and growing, we look back and say, hey, why couldn't I have known this 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago? Maybe so much would have been different if I would have known this. And I think that's, if that's pulling us down, anything that's pulling us down, including that, is definitely only coming from our Yetzer Hara that tries to disempower us and distract us from what really matters. For me, any energy that I feel of regret, I try to take that energy of regret and translate it into action of love and connection for today, both with those children, even if they're adults or teenagers, and with others, because that's what matters. And I also feel that, the Alter Rebbe, the Baal Tanya said, Voltich Zoltich is apikarsis. Could have, would have, should have is going against Hashem's, our belief that Hashem is actually in charge of this world. And that's the paradox of our choice. We have to hold our power of choice with reverence. We really have to hold our power of choice with reverence because Hashem gives it to us and it's all ours and nobody could take it away from us. Other people might make the road difficult. Other people might put things in our path, but nobody could take away our power of choice. And we could choose our perspective, and we could choose what we say, and we could choose what we do. At the same time, a minute after we made that choice, we trust that everything that happened was exactly as Hashem wanted it to happen. Exactly. Nothing could mess up. We are not big enough to mess up Hashem's plan. And every morning we say, Pakeach Ivrim, right? Who opens the eyes of the blind. Every day, Hashem opens our eyes with new awareness. What I didn't see with my mind's eye yesterday, now today I could see all over again. And we make this bracha all over again, even though the gift of sight, physical sight, is not brand new. The gift of awareness and insight is brand new every day. So we don't want to punish ourselves for learning. We want to be grateful for learning. We thank Hashem every day for opening my eyes to learn, to grow, to new insights, to new discovery, to new awareness that's taking my life to a better place and helping me show up with more dignity, with more courage, with more compassion. And about the past, yeah, but it would have been nice. But the fact that we didn't have it yesterday is Hashem's plan. And every child ultimately has their journey. Every child has their destiny. Every child has their difficulties and their challenges. Hashem does not have any grandchildren. Hashem only has children. Every single child is a child of Hashem, and their life and what happened to them in their childhood ultimately is planned for them by Hashem, and it's for their good and for their growth and for the choices that they need to make and the journey that they need to take in their lives. What happens when a child is so challenging that he consistently will create chaos till everyone around him loses their patience? It's very hard. Give yourself a break. Give yourself a break. Take a lot of deep breaths before this one comes through the door at the end of the day in school. Try to be proactive. This child needs 10 minutes a day proactively, right when he comes home at the end of the day, or maybe a few minutes in the morning. Proactively do something that will celebrate his goodness, do something that he really enjoys, read with him, play a game with him, exercise with him, do something proactively before he creates chaos. And give yourself a lot of energy so that you'll have the patience, and don't beat yourself up when you occasionally do lose it, because it is very, very hard. Okay. There are a couple of more questions, but I think we're going to stop here because I want this to be something that you could keep up, Mirz Hashem, next week. Next week, we're going to be doing principle number 1, which is Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe Marasha Kihilas Yaakov. And in the book, Your Awesome Self, we talk about how this principle is about aligning our beliefs with Hashem's reality. So we're going to do some of that work as it relates to parenting. I'm extremely excited about it. Thank you all for joining. During the week, if you have questions, you can email to Shterna at energizedliving.org or to 718-576-0338. Just remember that the 718-576-0338 number is also seen by my secretary. So Shterna at energizedliving.org is a great address for private questions. I would also love if you can share a victory. For homework this week, everybody try using that tool, the power tool. P for pause, O for observe what's going on in your mind. Ask yourself who is holding the power. W, welcome Hashem to the story, give him the power. Welcome your conscious values to the story. Embrace, E is for envision and embrace and encourage your neshama. Visualize it, visualize that light. Envision your child as a successful, thriving adult. It will take you out. All of this, the goal of all of this is to take you out of the fight or flight mode and get you into a place of connection. Again, P for pause, O is observe, welcome, W, welcome Hashem to the story, E, envision, or you could say embrace your inner light and envision your child as a successful, thriving, happy, connected adult. And R, from that place of new awareness, resolve to engage, resolve, how will I show up to this moment in a way that demonstrates that I am a happy, connected Torah Jew? You know, how am I gonna get, not how am I gonna teach that kid a lesson, but how am I gonna be a role model of all the values that I want this child to live by? I'll see you next week, Emir Hashem. Thank you so much for joining. This has been real.